I got a good video for you today. It's the 5 laws of stupidity. It's originally an article by Carlos Sepolo, an Italian economics historian, and does the definition that's in all of the dictionaries, is that a legitimate reconciling of stupidity? What is the definition in which we use to describe stupid? Because right now you couldn't ask one person to describe stupidity and more than likely get the same description of what stupidity is from another person. And that's dangerous because words have definitions, they have meanings, and those meanings are being lost. And I think stupidity especially is one that never really has had a definitive meaning for a society to view someone and say that person is stupid based on their actions. It's always kind of been an observation of what we believe this person to be doing, but it may not necessarily be stupid from their perspective, but it's a matter of seeing it from the same perspective. And that's why definitions and meanings are very important. So before we get started, hit that like and subscribe button. Let's roll into it.
First law of stupidity is that everyone underestimates the number of stupid people. And the idea here is that no matter how many idiots you think you are surrounded by, you are lowballing the estimate. And his argument is the reason that you underestimate how many stupid people there are around you is because you're probably assuming that people are intelligent based on superficial and irrelevant criteria like their job, their education level, their class, their race, whether or not they're eloquent, and other biases that you may have about assuming that if somebody is a certain way, that means they're not stupid.
How many people do we all know who have a really expensive car that they can barely afford, but from the outside looking in, people would think, man, that person really has their stuff together because they have a really nice car. But from the outside looking in, many people would think that you make smart decisions because you have this really nice car. Again, not that the laws need to fall into the exact order that they are, but let's look at them as individual laws, not necessarily 1 through 5.
Law number 2 of stupidity, and that is that the probability that a person is stupid is independent of any other characteristic. So the idea here is that every characteristic that you can imagine, whether it's gender, race, nationality, education level, income, any category you can imagine, is uncorrelated to whether or not a person is stupid. There are stupid Nobel Prize winners. There are stupid people in every walk of life, in every ethnic group, gender, class, profession, income level, anything you can imagine.
I think this is one of the more dangerous of the laws of stupidity, and that's because we are participant in that. The non-stupid people, for instance, is that in some cases we view a person who has money and authority as instantaneously smarter than other people, and that isn't necessarily the case. Just because a person has a position of authority higher than yours or lower than yours doesn't make them smarter or stupider. So many just average people view somebody who has money as instantaneously smart. And that's not necessarily the case. We can see plenty of people who have plenty of money who are not very intelligent at all. And so, this one, the second law, I think is probably one of the more dangerous of all of them because our participation is so needed for us to assume that somebody is intelligent because the way they look, the way they talk, the way what they have, what they drive, the job they have, the house they have, all these different things, we then assume that this person isn't stupid when in fact they may be. Their stupidity may be damaging to a lot of people around them, but we don't see that because all we see is this facade of the nice job, the car, the house, the stuff they have. And we then, from the outside looking in, assume that they have to be a smart person.
Point is, you can't use these other criteria to determine whether or not someone is stupid. Law number 3. And this is his idea that a stupid person causes losses to others without gains to themselves. You can still be stupid if you are very good at, for example, mathematical calculations or pattern matching or lots of other things. You could be very good at all of these things, but you're still stupid if your behavior towards others involves losses to other people without you actually gaining. So it's a theory of intelligence based on your behavior, your social behavior.
We're getting into the definition now, the actual definition of what the original writer of the article, Carlos Sepolo, put forth, was that this is a definition of stupidity. The other actions around it are kind of, they go to help support the idea, but that this is the actual definition of stupidity.
So stupid people are either just messing things up for everyone else without any clear gain, or even messing things up for everyone else and actually harming themselves as well in the process.
So now we get into the graph that you see there that's been on the screen the majority of the time, which shows stupid people down in the bottom left, helpless people, intelligent people, and bandits. And what that says is that your decisions put you in one of these four boxes. If you're knowledgeable of your actions and know that they will produce bad outcomes for other people, but it will positively help you, then you end up down here in the bottom right and you're a bandit, meaning you know what you're doing and you know that it's going to hurt somebody else. We don't realize that many of the wealthy people of our world fit down into this bandit category of their actions are producing great outcomes for them, but very negative outcomes for other people. And that puts them down on here in the bottom of the chart. And then up here at the top right, you have the intelligent people, the people whose actions are producing positive outcomes for them and for other people. So then over here at the top left are people who are putting forth actions that are producing outcomes that are hurting themselves but are helping other people. And so that makes them like helpless people. They're kind of floating through life just unaware of what's actually going on and the outcomes that they're producing. And we're seeing a lot of that. But then, and in some cases, that's they have a good heart, so they consistently will make that same, always the positive decision for the feel good. It's going to feel good, so they're going to always go in that direction. So it's consistently going to have they will get hurt, but other people will see positive outcomes. That's the helpless person, the person completely unaware. Then down here in the bottom left or the bottom left corner, that's the person that is the dangerous person, the people we're talking about, the stupid people who are uninformed, unintelligent, and in some cases refuse to listen to information that other people give them, and their outcomes hurt them and other people around them. You can see this through people who are uninformed through voting, people who are uninformed in deciding that unions are a good idea. We could go through by a lot of different examples, but the idea is your outcome produces bad for yourself and other people. How many people do we know this to be? And again, a lot of these things are based off of the perspectives and what we view to be what we think will be the outcomes versus what become the actual outcomes. Like sometimes we think, oh, with the heart, oh, this person's making the right decision because it's from the heart. But we know with our head ahead of time that that's going to produce a negative outcome for everybody involved. For everybody involved.
That's what stupid behavior is. Stupid people are consistent in being stupid. Law number 4 of stupidity: non-stupid people underestimate the danger of the stupid.
And we, as a group, as human beings, we don't consider how damaging stupid ideas can be when we let them fester and build within our society. I can name off a bunch of examples because we're seeing the outcomes right now. You can see it with, we'll use the way that economics are practiced in the United States. There's an outcome that produces bankruptcy, and that is spending more money than you make. That is a factual proven thing. You will go bankrupt if you spend more money than you make. And yet in the United States, for instance, we have a massive group of people that I believe from their perspective, they don't understand because they're potentially either aren't intelligent enough or aren't taught how all of this actually, how the economic system of our world actually works. So they continually vote and they continually help spend more money than our country actually makes. That is an outcome that is stupid, but yet we continue to put forth the actions ahead of time that produce the stupid outcome.
Non-stupid people constantly forget that at all times and all places and under any circumstances, to deal with and or associate with stupid people always turns out to be a costly mistake. Everyone underestimates just how dangerous stupid people are.
Just think about what it's like when you deal with a stupid person and how you give all of your best information, you give all of the best knowledge you have, and you walk away angry and frustrated. And the person who's stupid walks away content and perfectly happy, thinking that they won the argument or the conversation and that you're the stupid one and they now are the smart one. And it's all because we as people engage in conversations with stupid people that we know will produce negative outcomes. You will not change a stupid person's mind unless they want to be changed.
Law number 5, and this is the most interesting, I think. Stupid people are the most dangerous people on the planet.
I think with this law, we can look at some outcomes that we've seen throughout human history and see that stupid people are the driving factor behind most of the really bad decisions that have happened in human history. But they wouldn't know that they were the ones who did it because they were emotionally involved. I think that stupid people are more emotionally involved in things than intellectual, definitely. And you can see that through censorship, as an example. Stupid people fight facts and logic and realities that go against their fantasies and the things that they think by silencing the person. If you just stop the person from saying facts, the facts no longer exist. That is a major tool of stupidity, is to use power and wealth over people who are more intelligent than you just because you have more power and wealth. That ties into the second law, is that so you give people who have power and wealth that but are stupid too much power and wealth, and they will exercise stupid actions over more intelligent people that could produce better outcomes if they listen to the facts. But the facts are something that they don't like because they're emotionally attached in most cases to these things instead of intellectually being attached to these things. When you know that you're intellectually right and that you don't have to worry about your emotions at all, you don't one bit care whether your feelings are involved or not. You know that you are right. But stupid people base facts on how they feel, and those feelings change constantly. You look at the outcomes that we're getting in the United States, for instance. You have all these people who voted for Joe Biden who are now very surprised by the outcomes that they are getting. The Democrat Party has clearly been destroying the economic system of America and the moral system of America from the founding of the United States until now. If you just simply ignore emotions and look at the facts that have been produced, the outcomes that have been produced, you would have known ahead of time that putting Joe Biden as the president of the United States was going to produce this negative economy, was going to produce the pain that we're seeing worldwide because of their emotional involvement into these decisions instead of their logical, intellectual involvement in making the right decisions because they're the right decisions, regardless of our feelings or not.
The really dangerous thing about stupid people is that they mess things up for everyone else without clear gain to themselves. And that means they're not following incentives. They're just causing problems. So they're fundamentally unpredictable, and that makes them incredibly dangerous.
A good example of this is look at how much we see of protesting of the use of fossil fuels, for instance, but yet we don't have a legitimate renewable resource system in place to pick up the slack for getting rid of gasoline engines, for instance. We don't have enough electric cars. We don't have the infrastructure in place. We don't have the financial, America doesn't have the financial ability to buy all new electric cars and flip through this really quick to where everybody has new cars within the next decade. We didn't do that with combustion vehicles. Why would we do that with electric vehicles? It sounds really good and somebody else can deal with it later. The outcomes will produce negatives, and we know that now. Well, many people know that now, and many other people disregard the facts and the statistics, the numbers that we see right now, the evidence that we see right now for sake of their feelings. That is a stupid outcome.
I like the idea of defining stupidity in terms of social behavior because I have met very highly educated people who are very eloquent and articulate who are also stupid.
Many of us have examples of these direct supervisors, bosses, managers who make stupid decisions that the outcomes negatively affect so many other people, but yet continually, consistently make those stupid decisions. And yet, because they're the yes man, they're the person who says all the right things to their supervisor, they stay in these positions and therefore continue to produce stupid outcomes that lose money and hurt people around them and hurt and cost jobs. But they've been given a position because they said all of the right things, but they're actually a stupid person.
If you walk into a room full of highly articulate, educated people, there are going to be destructively stupid people in that group. And you shouldn't assume that just because people are highly educated or articulate, that they're not stupid. And by the same token, if you walk into a room of people who are ignorant, who are uneducated, you shouldn't assume that they're destructively stupid because the two are uncorrelated. You can't teach stupid people. You can teach ignorant people and they can learn.
I think right here he's somewhat associating IQ to stupidity because there is a point the US military had decided that or had discovered that around 80, the IQ of around 80, below that, you do not have the ability to actually learn new skills and be a functioning person. So you truly are mentally disabled and unable to learn new information, as opposed to the person who is disregarding information that they have because they don't like it or because it goes against their feelings. And so there may be a difference and there may be correlation between IQ. In some cases, there is a correlation between IQ and stupidity, but for the most part, I think it's more attributed to action or outcomes produced by your actions as opposed to an IQ. I think definitely there are people who have low IQs and are stupid and do not have the ability to learn, but the people that are the dangerous, the ones that we are and should be the most worried about, are the ones who have the ability to learn, have the ability to obtain new information and analyze and think properly, but refuse to.
There are people who cause havoc for everyone else, regardless of learning the facts. And how much impact do stupid people have on the rise and fall of civilizations? What determines whether or not societies are able to flourish is how the non-stupid people behave. What proportion of the non-stupid people are behaving intelligently, involved in win-win interactions with each other, and once the non-stupid people stop kind of containing the impact of stupid people, everything goes to hell.
What he had just said about there a second ago is that we can teach the ignorant, but there are stupid people that can't be taught. The stupid people who are below level intelligence to be taught aren't necessarily, there's not as many of them as there are the people who are intelligent enough to learn, have the IQ level enough to learn, but are refusing to do so. Those are the actual dangerous people. So when he says stupid people, he's a little off on this, because the stupid people aren't the people who have, say, Down syndrome, for instance. And I'm using that properly, is that people who have Down syndrome aren't necessarily stupid. Matter of fact, I know a guy who has Down syndrome who can observe stupid behavior happening all around him all the time, and yet he has Down syndrome. And he's in the one of the smallest percentages of people in our country, in our world. But yet he can make the observation that there are people who have higher IQ levels than him, but make stupid decisions that have very stupid outcomes, and he has Down syndrome. So is intelligence and is stupidity linked to IQ, or is it linked to a refusal to accept facts that people don't like?
How do you define whether a stupid person really isn't benefiting themselves? Because, I mean, you could say, for example, that a suicide bomber is doing something completely stupid because it harms other people and it also harms themselves. But then, from that suicide bomber's own perspective, they obviously believe that they benefit from killing themselves. So they could have their own subjective gains in mind.
And that's why stupidity, as defined as an outcome of actions, that is an actual definition that both sides of what he just said can see the same perspective. Then both people seeing stupidity from the same viewpoint, from the same definitive definition, then takes away a lot of the perspective that the bomber views it from one person and the person being bomb views it from another perspective. Is that the victim and the victimizer both would see it from the same perspective, because we're producing a definitive definition as an outcome.
That is a fascinating thing to consider, and to consider just how dangerous stupid people are. And there are way more people who behave in this socially stupid way than you think.
I actually don't think that the non stupid people would think that very much any longer. I think non stupid people are very much noticing how much damage the stupid people are causing, because we're at a point where the stupid people have created so much damage that it's not, you can't ignore it any longer. So it's very visible, the damage that is happening, the outcomes that are being produced, and there's a lot of people standing around afterwards bewildered with their hands up saying, well, why did this happen? And it's, we knew that these outcomes were going to happen, we stupidly ignored them because of our emotions. I think that's the biggest problem with human beings, is we ignore facts and statistics, what we know will be outcomes, because of our emotions. And I think that becomes the biggest thing. It isn't for the non stupid people to control the stupid people, but for the non stupid people to not allow the emotions of the stupid people to get overly um, inspired, for instance. Don't allow people who don't have information to grab pitchforks and torches and go to Frankenstein's house, because Frankenstein was actually a nice guy and nobody really knew it. But the way he looked, we would all think that he was poor. We would all think that he was stupid. We would all think that Frankenstein was a monster. But yet he wasn't. And you had pitchforks and torches trying to kill him. This is the matter of, if we all this could, and a lot of this could be prevented, if we go back to a place where we see things defined through words have meanings, and those meanings have outcomes. You know, we as people, we hear this: actions speak louder than words, but we forget that there's a third part of that, and that those actions produce outcomes that are measurable. With that being said, hit that like and subscribe button. Later.